Hey, what's happening? Akarisa Yasongsa. I got that right. Welcome to the channel. We started this little robo dude last week. Figure I'll just dig into this guy a little bit more. Trying to sort of brush up on my hard surface DynaMesh workflow where I'm going to be eventually smoothing all this stuff and polishing all this stuff up, but starting it all from DynaMesh and really working with the clay first, with the hard surface kind of in mind for the final. So yeah, what's up, Akuma? Udinez, what's going on, guys? Welcome. Bring in a little reference here. A little sketch I did last week. To spotlight. Aki, there you go. Yeah, we basically, is it Aki? Aki? I'm guessing Aki. So yeah, the Pixelogic has a handful of people, and we try to do different stuff. Or at least they try to find people who kind of specialize in different stuff. Mostly, like basically 100% of the stuff I do is for video games. I don't do a lot of cinematic. That is to say, like, film quality, film. Like I push it as far as I need for the games we're working on. And you'll see me on this channel do a lot of environment stuff too. Like I do blockouts and early sort of box modeling stuff for environment props, all in here. And that's not to say you can't take that stuff all very, very far in video games. It's just that I kind of focus on the sort of like the first few stages, and then leave polish for offline. Mostly because polish isn't super fun to watch. I find just detailing, crevices and placing bolts and stuff. Seeing the final polish work is always really great, but doesn't make for good instructional stuff. So I kind of keep it as fast moving as I can, and then hopefully if anybody has questions, I can be helpful in kind of finding answers for those. But yeah, so this is a little guy I spun up last week off this sketch here. It's just more of like a mood board kind of thing. I just want to be able to glance at it. Okay. And when you're using Spotlight, you don't want to paint through it. You want to turn off Spotlight projection under samples, brushes, samples. Yeah, this is the game me and my partner Jay are working on. It's a little indie game. It's only a 2-man game, but yeah, it's been going pretty well. And we just want. I'm always just kind of building content for this. If you look at my past streams, and ZBrush, Pixelogic archives all the streams, but they. If you look at my past streams, like I'm always making like content unlockables and stuff for that game. So yeah, I'm new to ZBrush. What you're using is kind of the same for ZBrush Core. Is it kind of the same for ZBrush Core? Well, I'm not really familiar with ZBrush Core's offers because it came out after I was already invested in ZBrush. But I do believe it's just a limited subset of the things I'll be doing, like as in like the brush set's limited, and maybe like Spotlight is that little reference board thing might not be in there. I'm not sure. But for the most part, all this is going to be transferable knowledge because at the end of the day, I'll just be doing DynaMeshing and sculpting and painting, and at the end of the day, that's going to be the same in ZBrush Core. Like ZBrush Core is going to be, I'm pretty sure like the same essential like mechanical input and the same kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Same kind of, just like interface options and functionality. I think, even if it's a limited subset, I think the things that do overlap will be the same. So hopefully it's helpful. Nice. What kind of game is it? Yeah, Kuma, exactly. Like it's a good ramp up. It might even be a little easy to ramp up with because it's gonna like, it's not gonna throw everything at you. It's gonna throw just a subset of things at you, which might be preferable. All right, I'm gonna turn off all of the materials because this one's just gonna be distracting for now. Let me see what I want these hands to be like. Rigging is not something that, like, skeletal meshes and bones and stuff aren't something that ZBrush really handles. So eventually, like, basically, like, once you're done the model, you want to take that to another package. You can do rigging in the terms of, like, you can do Z-sphere rigging, which is, let's see, 1 second. You can, like, append a Z-sphere. And then what you can do is, if you were so inclined, you could like build yourself a Z-sphere rig, and like you can make these things drive your mesh. So you could like use Z-sphere rigging for like posing and things like that. But if you're going to like make it to a game, like you're not building bones here. Like your skeletal mesh animation is still going to need to be handled in a 3D package that has the concept of mesh skinning and weighting skin birds to, you know, bone transforms, which a lot of applications handle differently. But at the end of the day, all a bone transform is just a hierarchy and a transform. It's just a direction and an axis. Takes the top name and the bottom name. The answer is top name when you merge down. That's a pretty solid little rhyme there. Pro 42. Pro, what's up? Arena Battle. Let me check it out. Is there a website on Arena Battle? Feel free to link your game website. I'd love to check it out. Just take a quick peek at it. Do you have anything up on the intro nets anywhere? Yeah, exactly. Posing. And then like what I find also is that people tend to prefer, and this is all, you know, preference, personal preference, but like if you turn off the manipulator, this is the old tool that before the 3D gizmo existed, this was the only way to transform. This is the transpose tool, and it can do all the same transformations. Not all the same, but it can do like, you know, different versions of it. But like you would pose with this bad boy, right? And then like, you know, obviously I'm, you know, where that thing and the shoulder is getting caught up, I'll have some issues to deal with, but you know, then I can always, if I'm just doing a proper sculpt, and all I really care about is like make his arm forward. You know, I'm not trying to animate it. I'm trying just to get an interesting pose. You know, use the transpose tool, get it to a point where it looks pretty reasonable, right? You know, that's a decent place for that to be. Got to rotate it a little bit. But yeah, like you do stuff like that, and then you know, that helps you pose your still out. So like you know, you kind of go limb by limb, twist the torso, do what you're gonna do, and then sculpt out any of the irregularities you might have added from that. So, but yeah, transpose tool was pretty useful, and you can do a lot of that with the gizmo as well now. Actually, the gizmo is probably a little bit easier because you can like mask it, and then set the origin of it a lot easier. Cloth need an inside for gaming models? I think are you asking whether like a cloth would be one-sided or two-sided? As in like, if I just make this a cube real quick. So say this guy has a cape, and I'm making him for my video game, right? Is your question such that would you keep it two-sided like it is now? You know, like imagine get rid of all this geo. Imagine I actually could. Anyway, it's not important. But regardless, so like, are you asking whether you want it to be two-sided or just this face? Like for example, that one's only one-sided, that's why it disappears when you flip it around. If I turn on double-sided, you can then see it. Yeah, so basically, the short answer is it depends on your engine, because your cloth solver has to be able to author that gap properly. You know, we made a character who has a really thick cloth. Put it up here. So she has a cape, right? And that's her cape right there. Obviously it's really thick. It's triangulated that way. You'll notice all the edge flows triangulated the same direction. That's important because the cloth solver uses the spin of the triangles. And this is all for Unreal Engine 4, which uses the NVIDIA Apex cloth engine. So her cloth is made thick, but you can also paint the sides of the faces so that these sides don't have to interpenetrate with those sides. So it'll move like a big, thick, heavy cloth. At the same time, we also have this guy's tassels are actually only one-sided. This is the high poly model, but the low poly model, there it is. This is the face of his cloth with the tassels. As you can see, it's only one-sided. So it really depends on your need. Like, you got to be able to have your your cloth authoring tool needs to be able to handle double-sided cloth like this, and at the same time you got to make sure you know, you're capturing the look of what you're going for. Like this cape is a big, thick cape that like connects to her cowl and is meant to be sort of meaty and heavy. These tassels are kind of just like flaps around as he runs. They're pretty thin. They're just tied to these little straps on his elbows. So, you know, I used one of each to solve each problem. You know, so like you're not limited by that. You just got to be aware of what your engine works with. And I'm not sure if you're using Unity or UE4 or whatever. Does a model need to be closer or even behind eyeballs? No. No. As long as they're skinned properly and weighted to the right skeleton, then it doesn't matter if they're closed at all. I keep them closed. You'll notice right there it's closed off because it's easier to work with the high poly and ZBrush. When they're closed, they maintain their form the way I want, and so I can work a little bit better. Ashley, what's happening? A Cubed is another one of our streamers here. She streams on Wednesdays. Check out her badass stream. Stream was active last night. Alright, so now I hope I explained that. Did the best I could to explain that for you. Back to what we're doing here. Alright, this fake cape is no longer needed. Let's delete that. Alright, back to business. Keep getting cut off by the little bar here. Okay, let's get back to sculpting this guy. Hey, what's going on, Kyle? Close holes. A lot of times when I'm working on a leg, I like to just split off one of them, look at it, and then I'll mirror it back over, because getting on the inside of the thigh can be tricky camera-wise. Possible to let the low poly mesh have those open holes while a high poly mesh wouldn't have holes, so you can render the texture with ZBrush. Yeah, absolutely. That's that's pretty much what I'll do. What you want to do basically when you're like, you don't want to have any extra faces when you go into the game engine. You don't want there to be any extra low poly geo that you don't need to exist. So what you want to do in that case is, yeah, just like, exactly as you said, keep the high poly nice and closed. I also seen where somebody made the UV map where the half body was overlapping the other body after ZBrush showed trouble with this method. Well, trouble how? ZBrush, I mean, it depends on what you're baking. So, like, you got to be able to fill in the gaps of like, what software are you using to I mean, you can make anything happen. Like, if you overlapping UVs, I mean, you just said it yourself. Like, somebody made that work. I mean, like, it's everything's workable. Like, you can use overlapping UVs in ZBrush, sure. It just might be different. Though, if you wanted to bake your normal map out of ZBrush, then that would be different in ZBrush if you had overlapping UVs. So I mean, like, yeah, that's definitely possible. But like, the best advice I can give you is, like, do both. Like, give yourself an hour to take a high resolution sphere, a low resolution sphere, one with open holes, one with closed holes. Like, sit for an afternoon in your 3D package and your game engine in ZBrush, and then just like test one of each, because like, you're never gonna get the answer you're looking for just by like saying like, does this work, does that work? You're not gonna learn anything about game development that way. It's just, that's the reality of it. Like, you have to get to the point where it's like, oh, this either works specifically this way because I've done it, or I have step-by-step instructions from some demo or some video and I'll execute that, or you've like walked that path yourself. And if you walk that path yourself, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, I know why that works, why that doesn't work. Then I can make an educated guess on why this would or would not work, and that'll help your workflow. Because you're never gonna fill all the gaps just by like, like wondering if something might be workable somehow. Like, you're gonna need to just like get your hands dirty eventually. Which method is your teacher suggesting you use? Is that the mirror UVs? I think that's what you meant, right? Where you like split down the mirror and mirror it. Is that where you're, is that the workflow your teacher is suggesting? Never have open holes and make the cloth thick or close the gaps of the closing way show the other model. Oh, I see. Yeah, like I said, it'll depend on your game engine. It'll depend on, I mean, like, I'm sure your teacher is given the thought to, you know, why that is. When you guys are still learning, the options are probably going to be more about, let's keep everything moving forward and, you know, ignore the distractions, right? So yeah, your best bet's going to be, yeah, I mean, the short answer is you can kind of do whatever your engine will allow. And like I showed you before, like it was my artistic choice to make it work the way I had, because I knew I wanted it to look, I wanted that thickness. Here's a pretty good CG Here's the one. If you ever want to also sort of get a lot more theory and method, check out that. It's a little bit older now. I wonder if the whole thing's free. There's the first. But that's a really good, like, he discusses the theory a lot. And, you know, obviously it's a bit older, but he has volumes 2, 3, 4, and 5, and he goes into UVing and cloth and hair and texturing and poly painting, ZBrush, Maya, in and out of game engine. So yeah, it covers a lot of theory, which is, you know, sounds like what you might be kind of, you know, looking for, which is like why you do things a certain way, and you know, those are the things that will help just as much as any class or teacher. So that help you kind of wrap your head around some of the techniques that you're specifically if you're looking into game theory. Yeah, so how you author those materials is all going to matter based on your shader and your game engine. So, you know, I think I would advise you, before you start making any decisions or going about your model, I would advise just that you keep in mind that your engine and the shaders in your engine are going to be the most important thing to whether or not, like, you know, your look is successful. Right now I'm just testing range of motion on these joints because I want to make sure that they can twist as much as I need them to. Looks like I can. Yeah, I actually started off, I've been programming pretty much my whole career actually. That was my professional sort of trade there. I got into art. I've always kind of been into art as a hobby, and you know, I always kept up with it, always kept trying to learn more and more and just try to you know, try to find if we have like bio anywhere. Here we go. So yeah, like we spent, you know, the beginning of our career working AAA as network engineers. You know, like I said, I always kept up with the art as a hobby, but never really did it professionally. And that's how we kind of learned about the process of making games. That's how we learned about, you know, how you do things and why. So yeah, and if you're an artist, you're gonna be better served. If you're an artist trying to make games, you need to have as intimate a knowledge with your engine as you possibly can. That's just really important. Yeah, and if you want to take programming as a hobby, you should. It's the best way to get into the industry, because good engineers are so hard to find. You know, not for nothing, you throw a rock, you'll hit an artist, especially out here in Los Angeles. But engineering is not an easy position to fill. It just isn't. There's just not a lot of engineers out there. And so if you wanted to get in the business and you're starting out right now and you're getting into art for the first time, you're getting into the game development for the first time, you should start building stuff with some of these free engines that are out there. Unity's free, Unreal's free, Crytek's free, Lumberyard's free. There's all kinds of 2D sprite ones that are free, but like, what you're going to want to do, here's the best advice I can give you if you're getting into the games industry. Start building stuff and understanding what you're building, how you're building it, why you're building it. There's a reason that, you know, it's an extremely, extremely competitive industry. It's because everybody wants to get into it because it's such a fun industry to be a part of. I mean, it really is. I really sort of cherish my time in the games industry, and I will continue to do so because it's something that I've really excited to work on my entire life, and it's something that I've always kind of wanted to do since I was very young. But yeah, but like, you know, just start building anything, you know, leverage your art skills to do the creative side of things, but also just start building it. I mean, like, you know, if you're working in digital art, you're at least technical enough to understand, you know, the software, the medium, which means you could probably get yourself pretty far along in some of these new engines, which make it very sort of artist friendly. Something to think about. It's definitely something that if you want to accelerate, you should definitely broaden your horizons, because video games are very interdisciplinary by nature. Dragon teeth row, using curve to easily make a row of objects rather than individually copy and move. Yeah, you want to do a curve brush here. Let's see. I think I actually have there's a toothbrush that I have in here. Pretty sure I have a brush for teeth. IMF section. Just trying tooth ZBP. Toothbrush. Insert brush tooth. Let's try this one. Here's a tooth. All right. There's your tooth, right? It's a pretty ugly tooth, but it's the first one I could find. But yeah, if you go to brush, you can make it a curved brush, try parts, and you have a curved brush, then like there's your row of teeth. You can increase the stepping, increase curve smoothness, but let's step it every 2. Put a little row of teeth along his armor there, and afterwards you can come back in and edit it a little bit and straighten things out. Press 6 to smooth it out. There you go, row of teeth for you. Doesn't look too bad actually on this guy. Alright, let's get out of there. Yeah, the art directors have to be, you know, I mean, like, it's like, for example, like, every time we released a Call of Duty, our engineers and our art people would get together and they would have really deep discussions about what's possible in our engine with our shading model, and, you know, that's a very, very crucial part of the whole endeavor, because, you know, you're inventing a brand new look, you're upgrading your engine to a point where every shader has to be manipulated, and, you know, if you don't get that stuff right, all of a sudden you find yourself a year into the project and your tech's not going to work. But if you do your job and you do your testing and you make sure, like, okay, like, I've proven that this will work, here's some shader tests, like, okay, let's move forward with this, like, that's the right way to do it, because then you find out all the things you need to find out, all the gotchas are found out in the art testing phase. You know, some of the things that I just are most critical to my current pipeline are things that I just, like, sat there for an afternoon, did a little R&D, and, like, played around with some, you know, whether it's a baker or some scripts or some hard edge flow, you know, tweaks, things like that, like, just really helps you kind of advance what you're doing, because it's harder, it's easier to forget something that you learned in a lecture or on a video, but it's really hard to forget something that you've done yourself, and there's just no substitute for just sitting there and grinding it out. Alright, nice talking to you, man. No, not at all. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help out and answer questions if I can. Thanks for stopping by, and yeah, I'm here every Thursday, so if you ever have any questions, want a clarification on something, like I said before, like the game side of things is definitely my wheelhouse, more so than the other sculptors, or not more so than the other sculptors, but the other sculptors are a little bit broader, but my focus is primarily games, so the other instructors can help you all kinds of stuff, but games are kind of the thing that I have the most experience with, have the most advice on, so feel free to come back and chat it up. Yeah, in Brazil especially, like there's a lot of really good game devs coming out of Brazil. We've contracted to a couple of them because they're just, the artwork is fantastic. I follow a ton of these Brazilian artists. The scene's really developing down there a lot. There's a lot of really talented artists out there. We've contracted to a couple of them now because they're just had that exact look I was going for, and really happy with these guys I've been working with. But yeah, being a generalist is always good, man. That's it's the way to be. Come back in and make these proper cylinders. I think I'm right in the schedule. And I think I'm starting to get to the point where I want to probably start subdividing, really adding a little bit more refinement and detail to these pieces, start splitting them off and doing the higher resolution of them. I think I had an idea of like pretty much what this dude looks like and where these elements are going to be sitting on him. How do you create brush for the teeth to spike thing? Okay, yeah. Let me catch up with chat here. Okay, so yeah. Software engineer 14 years and can't get the time of day to game studio. I started working in Unity, so you see that helps. CG Rifters, is that software engineering for like a traditional traditional software development? Like I came from Harry's Entertainment, which is my first job out of college, was with a casino company doing software. And I only did that, I mean, I think I was on my way to a game studio 6 months later, but that was because all I did was video game stuff. And specifically being a network engineer, that helped because being an online engineer, that's really difficult to find as well. And so that part of it really helped me a lot. But I'd be interested to know if you're talking about like, you've been in games and trying to, or you haven't been in games, or you're trying to break into games. It sounds like that's what you're talking about. In which case, yeah, I mean, like, I think you're doing the right thing. Start working in Unity, start working in these game engines, and just keep building stuff. Like, I didn't start, I was kind of like an assembly line engineer at Activision until like I started making games in my spare time at home, and just by needing to solve those problems, I all of a sudden started coming up with like a lot of new pipeline workflow things that really helped me in my job at Activision. Not that I was an artist at Activision, but it informed what I did as an engineer a great deal. So like just starting to build stuff was like the catalyst for me really starting to get good at sort of like the interdisciplinary craft of making games. So like, you know, if you're having trouble getting, you know, hired or interviews from game studios, I don't think there's a game studio in AAA anyway that does interviews with people without game dev experience. Like they don't just take software engineers because they write software. Like they need to know you've made games, because it's easy enough out there to go out there and grab some experience making games on your own time. Like I interviewed and hired people for Activision for a while, and I don't think I ever saw somebody, including our interns, who even got in the door without some kind of tangible engine experience. So yeah, I mean, if that's where you're at right now, I mean, don't fret, because if you've been in software for 14 years, there's nothing the game engines are going to throw at you that you can't handle. I mean, if you're a software developer, you're a software developer. It's not really anything more insane or crazy about video games. It's, you know, engineering is engineering. It's like, you know, it's logics, inputs, and outputs. You know, it's going to be the same wherever you go. So yeah, of course you're going to be more familiar with technology that you might not be using. If you're like a web developer, or you work a lot with databases, things like that. Ramping up on what the technology is like, you know, you start seeing patterns in game engines that are kind of, you know, all of a sudden become a little bit more like game dev theory, because you find that a lot of these engines do things in one of three ways, and you start understanding what all the ways are and why they do them that way, and like that's when your engineering brain starts taking over a little bit, and you start, you know, picking out what you do and why, that kind of thing. You know, well, being an engineer will serve you at those times. You know, analyzing your memory needs and optimization needs and all the things that come up when you're trying to finish and ship a product. That's when being an engineer is handy. But yeah, I mean, you know, if you're trying to get into the door, you're gonna need to show them some game work. That's just how it's gonna be. I mean, there's too many good applicants out there. I mean, again, like I just got done saying how there's not a lot. The ones that you do interview, you know, they have game experience, you know. Like, but again, like hiring good game engineers, it's tough because most good game engineers get hired, so they're at the place they want. You know, like free agent game engineers are really hard to find unless they're like specifically trying to make a move, or you're trying to, you know, convince somebody to leave their company. How do you create a brush for the teeth spike? Okay. Makes Polymesh 3D. Here's a sphere, right? Turn that on, center it. Let's throw a deformer on here. Let's flatten it to like right there. I'm just doing this very quickly for the purpose of illustration, but like, okay, so there's my shape, right? There's a tooth. Get it nice and low poly. So I got my tooth there. This is the tooth I want. Very simple. You face it the direction you want the brush to go. Create insert mesh. Press B to go to brush menu, create insert mesh. New brush. Now I've got my insert mesh brush, but it's only a single drag out tooth thing. Let's say this is a mouth. I'll use this as a little bit of a jaw here. How's that? Right? You want to fill this guy with teeth. So I just made that brush. Insert mesh brush. Now you go to brush, like I showed before. Just put on curve mode. Give it a little extra curve smoothness. And then add the curve step. There you go. All the teeth. You ever want. Get a little bigger. A little bigger. Edit that curve a little bit, and then there's your starting point. There's your jaw. Teeth galore. A little shark mouth. And then you can maybe get a little creative here. Pull these out a little bit. Pull these up. Pull these down. Pull those up. Inflate the ones in the back. They're more molar. There you go. Little shark fossil, or little fossil there. So Akira Aki. There you go. Not bad little jaw. Which games did I work on? You can go to my that's on that press kit I linked before. How do you get into video games? So I got in because I was a network engineer, and I knew I wanted to get into video games. That wasn't just being that, but it was something that I. You just gotta chop this out. This part's driving me nuts. It was something I always kind of knew I wanted to get into, but like being an online engineer in a time where online video games were, you know, just starting to really blow up on consoles. You know, Call of Duty was looking for online guys. I was an online guy. That's basically the long and short of it. that a is that a I don't think donations are even on this page. Are you able to donate on this page? Are you able to donate on this page? I don't think you are. Could be wrong. I don't know if you guys got $500 from somebody, but I don't think donos are open on this page. I think you are. Could be wrong. Huh. Let's check out this game here. Ludinez. I like the art style a lot. That's really cool. What engine is this? Unity, I'm guessing? I think it looks awesome. Got good melee in there. Sound effects are good. I think he really nailed the aesthetic. I think the aesthetic is really strong. Good color palette. Yeah, I like it. You guys did a really good job with this. The UI in the upper left, it's good luck. Got that nice emissive glow about it. I'm guessing each of these guys has a special, unique kind of power. That's why you switch them. It's a clever idea. This guy can jump, I guess. You can tell by the colors. Yeah. That's cool, man. I think you guys did a really good job with this. I like the color coordination with what the things are there. Yeah, I really like it. Did a good job. And those, I think you'll find too, like those are the things that, you know, that often trip people up. It's things like getting the aesthetic down so that the look kind of fits the game. You know, like getting cohesion with, you know, what type of art style you go with, and how that feeds into the audio and the gameplay and all that stuff. I think it's a trickier thing than people realize. Man, this is cool. Yeah, so, I mean, even it's like for a student, you know, like I think you'll find that, you know, you'll be way ahead when it comes time to try to enter the professional field. You know, you should have plenty of opportunity there. Yeah, I agree with Hanzoku. Like, I totally agree. Like, they were all very different looks, but they had a cohesive, consistent theme, which was another thing. It's like it's very it's very difficult for people to get that right. So, very good job. You know what? I'm gonna do a quick edit to my UI here. So if anyone wants to see a little UI customization. Preferences. Enable customize UI. Yeah, this is a good time to refresh actually. Make sure I get everything set up straight, okay? This primitive brush is not as good as the one that ZBrush now ships with. was this one. So I'm gonna throw that there instead. Customize. Save my custom UI. It's a better brush to have there. Cylinder, not edges, cylinder inner loop, cylinder inner loop, that's that, nice. Cylinder pipe, cylinder extended, that's interesting. QQ, this is the one that comes with ZBrush. Yeah, these are all pretty good. The previous brush I had there didn't have that many options, so.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Give this a little bit of an edit here. This thing's been bothering me. I'm just on this playlist that goes just a random mix of about a couple hundred songs that are royalty free. We can't, because of Twitch's music rules, we can't export content that has copywritten music in it. So I just leave that royalty free music playlist on loop. Gets kind of repetitive, but what can you do? Export meaning like at the end of all these streams, Pixelogic dumps it to their YouTube channel, and they also publish them on Twitch, so you can go and watch back the archives in case there's anything you missed or wanted to catch up with. But the way Twitch works is when you do that, it like searches all existing music databases to make sure that there aren't any claims to the music that's in the stream. So you'll see like there'll be other channels will have like exported streams, and you'll see that like you'll see that they're missing the music. It'll give you a little pop that says portions of this or audio are missing. And no, YouTube is very, very, very strict about how royalties work. Yeah, can make things kind of difficult. So that's gonna be a little swivel. And it'll Right back, guys. Shoulder pads. Someone at the door, hold on 1 second. Back and feel dizzy. Feel dizzy from what? Well, that's a good sign. It means you exerted yourself a great deal. Those first few weeks back are the hardest weeks. I just recently got off the schneid myself, and now that Disc Jam's out the door, we got a little more time to ourselves. Finally started making a routine out of it. The first few, like I said, the first few weeks back are the hardest, because it's just like it's so easy not to do it when you've been not exercising for so long. But now I think I'm pretty much well back in the groove. I think I'm finally got a little rhythm here. Yeah, it does. Took me a while to like get the nerve up to finally commit to it again, but I finally had a few too many rough nights out, and I was like, all right, time to get serious. This is ridiculous. So easy to find an excuse not to go. It keeps replaying the same damn songs. Taper on this part here. Top part's a little bit too thin. There we go. Was I ever on a game designer education? No, when I was in school, they didn't really offer that kind of thing in so many places. Like trade schools, like Full Sail and stuff, did things like that, but it wasn't something that was readily available. Plus, I think games design, I'm not sure I believe it's something that can be taught in the sense that, like, I mean, of course, there's ways that you can like learn systems design and game systems design, things like that. I think if you're spending your time in school, there's a lot better things to be learning than game design. I think you know, like paying attention to the craft of game design is important, and understanding educated choices and understanding why certain designs went a certain way, and building things like that. I think all that stuff matters, but I think that's something that sort of is instinctual and comes with the territory when you're learning how to make games. Like, if you're learning how to make games, is there a game design out there that's literally so brilliant that you needed to have studied what is successful about it? I don't know that I've ever seen one. When it comes to like super complicated fighters like Street Fighter and comboing and how they string things together and why, blah blah, all the way down to like combat of Destiny and designing, what mechanics and weapons level up at what rate and how the AI compensates and so on and so forth. Skyrim's design, where it just kind of gets harder as you level up to the point where you're leveling so high that nothing can even beat you in the game, and all those kind of things. Like, none of that stuff's rocket science. I mean, all that stuff is like, if you play games, you enjoy games, you should be able to design functional game mechanics. I think the real trick is translating the mechanic you'd like to see in your game, translating that mechanic to a actually built design. I mean, that's the part that I think people should be focusing on in studies. It's like, you want to make sure that you're learning how to make a game, not just learning what would be a fun game design. Like, that's not very valuable, I don't think, for your career or your education. It's not that it isn't important. Of course it's important for a game to be fun and successful. It's just not something I find that there's a whole lot to study. I think the notion of studying game design in my mind is something you could be picking up, and certainly a lot to discuss there and a lot of valuable information to be had there, but I don't think there's anything you're going to learn there that's more valuable than like, oh, how do I build this game? How do I architect this design so that it shows up in my game design and shows up in the game, and so that whatever my designs are, can I build them? I think that's far more valuable. I think that'll serve you a great deal if that's your approach. How do you know you can get? How do you know you're good enough to get a job with your current skill set? It's a good question. I think it depends. You know, do you want any job? Because, you know, a good way to find out is if you're talking about art, sounds like you're building a lot of art. If you want just any job, put together an ArtStation profile, put your absolute best work there, and you know, if you're trying to do art, you need a portfolio anyway. Like, get a portfolio together. That's just step one. If you have a portfolio, then get it out there, you know, in enough public spots that maybe you'll get some contract work, or maybe someone will ring you for an opportunity to, you know, join as a primary artist on a project or something. How do you tell if your work's good enough for like AAA or getting a job at a studio of your dreams, like Riot or somebody like that? You know, I think you'd have to compare your portfolio to the work of people who got their job. There was recently an article published, a guy just got a job at Naughty Dog, an artist. He was terrified and he was so excited to interview that he was just like blubbering through his speech, and he was just really upset. He's like, well, I've got no chance at this. And then he ended up getting that job because, again, like, you know, his work was good and he was personable and people liked him, and that was that. You know, it's not always so cut and dry, you know. But yeah, the more information, the better. You know, if you are able to find people out there who've gotten the job you're after, you know, a lot of times people are willing to share, you know, what they think the bar is. Let's just see. Looks like they're hiring for a lot of positions. Programming, a few art. 57 jobs open there. So these guys did Rainbow Six Siege, For Honor. So these guys are AAA as it gets, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, it'll be very competitive to get a job like at one of these places. Again, depending on what you want to do, but you know, the best way to tell is to go in there and apply, but you don't want to apply until you're ready. So, I mean, a AAA portfolio, if you're going in as an artist, a AAA portfolio has to be very impressive, even to get just your foot in the door. Well, you never know. I mean, you know, it depends on what kind of work you're producing. It's hard to say without seeing your work, but you know, I mean, anything's possible. I mean, the good news is that you don't need, you know, a AAA education or background. I mean, the best thing about it is that it really is a meritocracy when it comes to video games. Like, if you're good enough, you'll get that job. So it's really kind of simple. How do you get in the industry? You keep working until you're good enough, and you know, there's just no shortcuts for that simple fact. But the good news is that if you put the work in, you will get that job. I mean, I've never seen anybody in all the years I was interviewing people at Activision, I've never seen anybody who's good enough and like I've never seen somebody really, really good get passed on. You know, I mean, like, people get passed on all the time, but it's like, you know, they do or don't have the talent. They can or cannot do it. If they can do it, they usually get the job. And if something doesn't work out, they don't end up at Activision. They usually end up someplace else where they're, you know, for one reason or another, happier over there or a better fit. But like, you know, don't get discouraged. I mean, that's the best thing about the games industry. It is a meritocracy. You will get that job if you're good enough for it. If you're not good enough for it, you will be one day. Just gotta keep working. Honestly, the best advice I can give anybody is just work. Work all the time. Work to the point where it's like your friends are mad at you, your family is mad at you. You don't see anybody besides your other fellow game devs. I mean, it's sad, but it's true. I mean, you just gotta work. You have to work. All of a sudden, you'll find you've collected all this information you didn't have at the beginning. All of a sudden, you're a lot better at what you do. I will say there's very few people like, oh, I want to get in the games business. What do? I'm an artist and blah blah blah, and then you go, oh, okay, I'm gonna go work at Riot. It's like, well, no, I don't want to work at Riot. I'm gonna go work at Blizzard. I want to go work on Overwatch. Well, of all the artists in the world that are good, they all want to work on those IPs because that's where artists thrive. That's where you have the best character art in the world going. Yeah, I mean, you just have like so many reasons to thrive there. Very few people get their first gig at a studio like that. How you doing, Eden Cicada? How's it going? Like, you know, you sent me Blue Byte. Blue Byte's probably one of the top 5 studios, I would imagine, in Europe. I mean, they've worked on some of the biggest games, AAA, that are out there. So I mean, you know, it's you gotta be realistic, or you know, your portfolio is that good that it's, you know, among the best in the world. In which case, shit, man, get out there, go do it. But you know, you just want to be realistic about it. I had a long way to go. When I first started Activision, I was lucky to have my first game be a AAA franchise, but you know, a lot of people go their whole careers without ever getting that opportunity. It just so happened I got lucky because they were looking for network engineers, and that was what I was doing at my job. So I got real lucky there because they had a specific need for what I was doing at my non-game dev job. And then, you know, I spent my time at Activision just learning everything I possibly could. You know, we would work until 2 in the morning, and I would come home and work on my projects until like 4 or 5 in the morning. Just like trying to get better all the time, and to the detriment of my, you know, social life. But it really helped out, and now it's like we're making this game Disc Jam, just the 2 of us, and we don't really have any need for other people other than like we need manpower because we need throughput, but we don't have any need. Like, there's not anybody I would have to say, you know, I don't know how to do this. Like my partner and I, like we can hire people effectively because we know what every step in the process takes, and that's been very critical for our success with this jam so far, is that we can make smart hires, we can value people properly because we know what goes into making a game start to finish. That didn't come overnight. That came with a great deal of that comes with shipping 15 games for Activision over the course of 10 years, and that's just, you just can't put a price tag on that mileage. And so, when you're starting out, you gotta get that mileage from somewhere, and you gotta, build that up somehow. So. Yeah, I think even Cicada, I think, I think what I hear a lot from AAA studios is that, of course, they want to see that you can work in their style, but a lot of them want to see that you can work in a number of styles. So like your portfolio should be like your best work, succinct. This piece that I made shows, it's not my best piece, but it shows I can do architecture as well, because the architecture is really good, but the overall render's not great, something like that, right? Things like that aren't always, good to share, because like you want to keep it as like, you want like your portfolio to be home runs, just like this is a home run, that's home run, that's home run. But if you can show, yeah, I can do characters and I can do architecture, I can do, material development, and I can do texture development and designer, like whatever you might be thinking about doing. It's important that, like, while it's important you can communicate their style, it's helpful that they see, like, here's what I find. Like, I'll see an artist and he's got an amazing portfolio of his style, and it's like, that's your style, I get that. It's similar to my style, so it should work out. And then when you work with them, you find that they're very, very, very pigeonholed in what they do, and so you can't lean on them to say, hey, like, you're an artist, I need you to maybe pick this ball up or do something, can you create, and they literally can't do it, and it's like, well, I really need an artist who has a specialty but also a breadth of understanding. So if your portfolio can demonstrate a breadth of understanding, that's helpful, because it shows, like, okay, like, at the end of the day, what are you doing? You're shading pixels, and you're building art for a renderer to make textures, just draw on screen. That's all environment art is, that's all character art is, that's all art is. The better you are, the more clearly you're able to communicate you understand that, the better. Because that's just going to lean into the fact, okay, this guy's not going to need a babysitter, he's not going to just be one of these guys who sits in a room and needs to get his hand held. Those guys do get hired because their skills are so good that they're in demand and they get hired. But if you really want to be an attractive candidate, that autonomy and that, like, just, specialist with general ability, very few studios can afford to pass up guys like that, because they are few and far between. So, like, when you have a portfolio, I think, like I said, you do want to demonstrate you can nail their style. It's unlikely you're gonna go to Blizzard and they're gonna be like, okay, let's see that, let's see Tom Clancy level of realism, But you never know. They could be working on a game like that. You never know what they're working on. If you can show that, like, yeah, I can do ultra realistic as well. Like, Diablo's characters were, like, decently realistic, so you might find out that, like, oh, there's, like, a place for me to do this type of work here. It's important to see that, like, artists can do, they have breadth, so to speak. It's a good time for the old transpose tool. Oopsies. and shrink it upwards. Well, yeah, one advice, if you're making your own game, like, I think that you should be if you want to get in the industry, the best advice I give people, or the consistent advice I'm always giving people is just like, go build something. And like, that's going to get you a lot of the way there. The simple fact is, when you're building something, you're going to run into challenges. You're going to run into complications. Things are going to go wrong. That's great stuff though, because all that is just learning material and making you a better developer. And that's what your goal is, right? Your goal is to become the best developer you can be, improve your resume, and get that job that you're after. The key to that's going to be just build stuff, because that's what's going to be the point in which, oh, you know, I got to learn how to shade this way, or I got to learn to do water a certain way, or I want to really hit this stylized look, you know. That's where that's going to come from. I think having an own style is better for artists that work as like traditional artists. I think selling their art as prints or whatever, Instagram fan base, stuff like that. Maybe they're just doing their own thing. Well, it depends, right? Because like, someone's own style might fit what a studio is doing. Like, someone's own style is like, yeah, like, you know, super stylized and kind of anime and cartoony, like, you know, that fits with what like Battle Chasers is doing right now, or, you know, like, I mean, the Blizzard, quote unquote Blizzard style became so popular that like, it's the whole genre now. Like, you know, like people at Riot, you'd have to say that they're, you know, kind of using the Blizzard style. A lot of indie developers are using this sort of like a westernized version of anime, really, is what I kind of like think of it as. Is that like cartoony anime style, but like Western comic book angle. Like, that's like a very popular look at the moment. You know, the big oversized shoulder plates from like Total War and Warcraft and Warhammer, that is. Like, those kind of things, you know. If that's someone's like, if someone's style is in that vein, you know, it's going to help them when they interview those people. Versus just doing like, you know, hyper realism. You see a lot of guys, their portfolio is just hyper realistic stuff, and there's nothing stylized about it. You might find out that person can't do stylized work. Although usually, to be good at stylized work, you need to have a pretty solid understanding of hyper realistic work and to really inform what you're doing from a stylized perspective. I mean, being able to do both is really like the holy grail, creativity wise. Yeah, Square, they've, since, you know, man, since I was in high school, Square has been like on the bleeding edge of hyper realism. I mean, they're always kind of pushing the envelope on that frontier. any knowledge about licensing characters. I know that it's very, very difficult. Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo have been talking to us about getting some of their IP, their characters in a disc jam. And I have a buddy who worked on a game for the PSP that licensed a lot of characters. It really kind of depends on the opportunity, but the thing about working with someone else's IP is that, you know, the sign-off process is very, very, very rigid because it's their IP. And whenever you're working with somebody else and you're working with their IP, you basically are giving them 100% of the authority. And you know, that might not be what you want, honestly. Like, that might not be something that works for you. You know, I'm looking forward to hopefully including some of the you know, someone else's IP in our game. I think it'll be a fun project, but it's just something that you gotta be very careful of when it comes to like workload and legal language and all that kind of stuff. You know, I think that, you know, are you gonna get Square to license one of their characters? I think you're gonna need to do that by having a game first, or having a prototype that like suits them, and maybe they're involved in the publishing or something. But getting someone to let go of their IP for your game is a lot harder than you expect as well. You know, we've got some exciting stuff coming up where we're working with somebody, and I'm not going to go into it now, but the point is that, like, you wouldn't believe the sign-off we had to get, and it came from people who I didn't even think had anything to do with it. But you know, once someone cultivates IP, that's why we kind of always try to do new characters and focus on building IP as a company, because like we're like, well, maybe these characters go to the woodshed and no one ever sees them ever again. But if there's any chance at all that somebody is like interested in the characters we're building, you know, IP rights are a very valuable thing, especially in this day and age when like so much of creativity is being marginalized, and so many, you know, so many things in film are sequels, or, you know, explorations of 60-year-old characters. Like, new IP is at a premium right now, and it's just something that you kind of always want to be developing. You know, character design is a very, very fun, nuanced thing, and if you can get the personality that guys at Blizzard have managed to get in Overwatch, you know, I think you'll be well on your way to producing some pretty valuable content. Yeah, so Kyle, like, that's like something that would not be out of the question, you know. That's the thing. It's like, those are all things that are on the table, and it's just like something that you want to, you know, be absolutely, I mean, I'd be honored, right? At the same time, it's like, Nintendo is not, as you can imagine, when and where that Mario turns up in the world is not something they take very lightly. Yeah, social media presence is good because, like, you find some of these artists who had, I mean, like, it happens almost overnight. Like, they had almost no following, and then all of a sudden, like, they post a piece that people really gravitate toward. The thing is, and like, they usually most of these people have these huge backlogs of Instagram posts or ArtStation shares, you know, one feature, and it just will catch fire. And so, like, you know, working at it, not only does it make you a better artist because you're, you know, working at it every day, but if you're always kind of developing, you're developing your talents, but you're also developing like a reputation. People start finding out who you are, and all of a sudden, you know, you got a few thousand followers and a big portfolio of people's favorite work, and then that makes that first interview goes a lot better at that point. And you could also do fan arts. Like, if you want to get the attention of somebody, you know, fan arts are it's a good way to kind of flex your muscles, because fan arts allow you to not worry about the character design so much. Like, right now I'm thinking a lot about how is this guy's interlocking mechanisms how are they all gonna work? Like, what's gonna lock into what? Um, how am I gonna animate his hip and his bones there? Um, all those things matter a great deal, obviously, and for the success of this concept, they're gonna matter a great deal. However, if I was doing a fan art of, like, what's that character from Overwatch? If I was doing a fan art of, like, Bastion, for example, all of those decisions are already made for me. All those problems are already solved. So my only job is going to be to go on in and do a good job modeling him. So that's something to think about, because, like, fan arts could get the attention of the people. If you want to work with Square, you mentioned Square. If you want to work with Square someday, if you're working on some fan arts for Final Fantasy characters, and maybe they get picked up on ArtStation's front page, or fan arts, are really a good way to kind of just shut your mind off and work on the craft. And you want to be able to demonstrate you can do original IP as well, but at the same time, I know Inktober's coming up. Like, it's a good opportunity to do some fan art for Inktober, do some sketches every day of, like, characters you'd like or would like to work in the IP one day. Well, it depends on the size of the project too. Yeah, sorry about the music. It's got over 200 songs, but the shuffle algorithm must be broken because it keeps playing the same stuff. And I just kind of turn the volume down, have it in the background. I don't really even listen to it. So sorry about that. I gotta maybe look for a new playlist next week. I'm trying to make my first game toonish, like PS2 games. Should I build out the face or make them a drawn face and just animate the texture instead? I'm worried about soulless models. PS2 games. In your case, I would say do whatever's easiest. I would worry about less like this final look, because without a ton of experience, if you want to make it like Jack and Daxter, which is toony PlayStation 2 game, very, very beginning, you're gonna need skeletal meshes, facial animation bones, a whole pipeline for syncing all of that. Like, if you want to do expressions on the characters, facial animation's not like an overnight thing. Facial animation takes a lot of time. Regular animation takes a great deal of time, but facial animation, like hand animation, is very communicative, very, very labor intensive, and you're not gonna just, drop it in. Like, it's not gonna be an artistic choice. It's gonna be a technical choice. Do you do a drawn face and animate the texture, like, versus like a skeletal toonish face model? I would say do whatever one you can do quicker and do that one. Like, this is your, if you're just starting off these early projects, you can't set the bar so high. I mean, I would do no facial expression whatsoever if I was you. I would try to animate the character and get the gameplay in there. And if it's toonish, it's toonish. But, like, what do you need facial animation for? Like, finish the project. Like, your hurdles are not going to be stylistic and artistic. Like, you're asking questions about the look and what looks better. That's not going to be your problem. Your problem is going to be, what am I technically able to execute on? And that's what you need to do. Like, start there. And then, like, maybe next project, start with facial animation and use some of the characters from your last project, or just build on that. And that's going to be your best bet. All right, nice talking to you, Ludinez. Good talking to another Brazilian artist. Like I said, I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing down there. I've been working with several of Brazilian native artists, and they're just really talented game art scene coming up down there. So keep up the good work, man. I like that. I really like that project you showed. You know, just keep it up, man. Yeah, in voice acting and syncing that, it's a huge thing. And even if you're not doing that, you still got to worry about just selling an expression. Like, expressions are a very tricky thing to get right. You know, it's just something that you want to be mindful of. Alright, let me fill all of these. Z plugin. Let's go to subtool master. Fill visible subtools. MRGB. Let's pick that color. I'm just gonna put a nice shader in all these subtools. Color and material. Now I'll go through and give everything a nice even Cicada. Oh, they're saying goodbye to me. Yeah, so I know what you're talking about. You're talking about, like, even like Zelda, I think, didn't have their, even the new Zelda, maybe they did actually. I think the new one they did facial animation. But either way, again, it's gonna depend. But I stick by my advice: just do whatever is the absolute easiest and start there. That will help you. That mentality. Yeah, you can post a link. If I believe it's not gonna mod it, and if not, I can just share it. So go ahead and post it if you like. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Like, I like the big stylized look. Looks like you got some nice muscle groups forming there. You know, one thing you could do, like, to get you 90% of the way there in terms of character look is, you know, you could always, sorry, let me just, I'm just putting some of these on curves here. Groups by normals, increase polygroups. There we go. One thing to think about is you could always just put that guy right there. That's perspective on. You could always just do blinking, because blinking is really easy to set up. It's just usually you do like a morph target or a blend shape. You can set it up in ZBrush using a layer where you just pinch the eyes closed, set a morph target, and then export your skeletal mesh with that morph target. And what you'll end up what ends up happening is that when you are in the game engine, you can just like go from 0 to 1 on that morph target and just does a blink. And you can do like a, you know, you can set something up so it's like, oh, blink every so many seconds, or blink twice really quickly every so many seconds, and you know, do a random blink here and there. And like, you know, you kind of have a decent personality, because just blinking does a lot for selling personality. Even if they're not doing anything else with their face, like, you'll find that blinking actually gets them a pretty decent amount of the way there. Alright guys, 3 o'clock. I'm all wrapped up for the day. Good talking game dev, guys. I'll be back next Thursday. And like I said, I tend to focus more on the game dev stuff. So if that's your guys' bag, then join me on Thursdays. We can chat all about this stuff. And you know, over time you'll start seeing some of these characters I work on here start showing up in the game. And yeah, you know, just like to show you guys what it looks like to go from concept, which is all early stuff here, to in-game action. So thanks a lot, appreciate that. Yeah, thanks everybody for stopping by. Be sure to check out our other streamers. There's a schedule on Pixelogic's webpage, and you probably see it on the bottom of the Twitch channel there. Good talking to you guys, good questions, and hopefully I was helpful. And like I said, yeah, Pixelogic makes this software. So I'm actually, this Jam Game is my account. That's Pixelogic Kyle, he works for Pixelogic. Pixelogic makes this software. This is ZBrush. So this is an official channel from Pixelogic with several different artists all working in ZBrush and making stuff in this software. So yeah, Kyle can share a link that has all of our schedules and stuff like that, but like everybody focuses on kind of different stuff. So it's really a lot of fun because a lot of our artists, they all kind of have their own style and their own specialties, and we got some guys who make some of the coolest like statues you've ever seen. Some people are working in film. Other guys are also game artists like myself. So a lot of really talented people, a lot of really cool stuff to check out. So if you guys first time to the channel, definitely check out those other guys and give a follow if you want to see when we're all going. But I'm scheduled for this same time every Thursday, noon to 3 p.m. Pacific, and so I'll be back. And like I said, mostly just doing game stuff that's going to end up in our game. So if you guys are interested in that, then definitely stop on by. All right, guys. Once again, thanks a lot. Good questions today, and see you next time.
So the first thing that I wanted to talk about in this series is the idea of transferring textures So the first thing that I wanted to talk about in this series